Some parents leave, others stay and pay for it with their entire lives. This is the story of Chioma and her father, who stayed until staying killed him.
The suitcase was blue. Chioma remembered the color because it was the only nice thing in their small apartment. Her mother had bought it 2 years ago when she said they were going on a family trip. They never went. Now, at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday in March, her mother was filling it with clothes. Chioma watched from the doorway of her parents' bedroom. She was in primary 3. She didn't understand what was happening, but she understood that the way her mother was moving, fast, angry, not looking at anything in the room, meant something bad. "Mama, where are you going?" Chioma asked. Her mother didn't answer. She kept folding clothes, the same dress twice, not caring. Her hands were shaking. Chioma's father, Obiora, came home from the mechanic shop at 6:30. He came home smelling like engine oil and sweat. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. His hands were permanently stained black from years of working on cars that didn't belong to him. He stopped in the doorway when he saw the suitcase. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Her mother, Amina, finally looked at him. And in that look, Chioma saw something that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She saw her mother had already left. She was just packing the physical proof of it. "I'm done," Amina said. "I'm done with this. I'm done with you. I'm done with being poor." Obiora stood there in his ruined work clothes. He looked at his wife. Then he looked at Chioma. Then back at his wife. "What about your daughter?" "She'll be fine," Amina said. "You'll figure it out." Those were the last words she said in that apartment. She didn't hug Chioma. She didn't say goodbye. She just picked up the blue suitcase and left, like leaving was the easiest thing she'd ever done. Obiora stood in the doorway for a long time after she was gone. Then he went to the kitchen and made breakfast. Cassava and eggs. It was what he always made, even though there were never enough eggs and the cassava was always from yesterday. "Come and eat," he called to Chioma. She sat at the table. Her father sat across from her. They ate in silence. Outside, Lagos was waking up. Cars honking. People shouting. Life continuing like a woman hadn't just destroyed a family. After breakfast, Obiora took Chioma's face in his hands. His palms were rough and scratched. "Listen to me," he said. "Your mother left because she wanted more than I could give her. That's not your fault. And it's not my fault either. It's just what happened. But I'm here. And I'm not leaving. Do you understand?" Chioma was 6 years old. She didn't understand anything except that her mother was gone and her father was staying. She nodded. "Okay," he said. "Then we are going to be fine." They were not going to be fine. By primary 4, Chioma understood that hunger was not something that came and went. Hunger was a constant state of being. There were mornings when her father made her breakfast, a piece of bread with no butter, a cup of tea with too much sugar to make it taste like something. He would watch her eat, his own stomach probably screaming. "Eat well," he would say. "You need energy for school." He rarely ate breakfast. By primary 5, Chioma noticed her school uniform was the same size as it had been 2 years ago. She was growing, but the uniform wasn't. Her father had reinforced the seams 3 times with thread that didn't quite match. When other girls made fun of the patched uniform, Chioma said nothing. At home, she cried quietly so her father wouldn't hear. He heard anyway. He always heard. That week, he took an extra job. He started fixing motorcycles on the weekends, work that paid less and hurt his back more. But he did it for 2 months straight so he could buy her a new uniform. When he gave it to her, wrapped in newspaper, he was so tired he could barely stand. "Try it on," he said, smiling like he hadn't just sacrificed his body for cloth and thread. It fit perfectly. Chioma wore it for 3 days straight before washing it, because she wanted to feel like she belonged somewhere. By primary 6, the school was sending letters home about unpaid fees. Kiora's father would sit at the small table in their apartment, the same table where her mother had eaten her last meal, and stare at the letters. His jaw would clench. His hands would ball into fists. Then he would get up and go back to work. There was never enough money. There was always just barely not enough. Chioma learned to study by kerosene lamp when the electricity was cut off. She learned to wear her school shoes until her toes poked through the sole. She learned that her father would spend money on her education before he spent money on food, so she learned to be worth it. She made sure she was worth it. By the end of primary 6, Chioma was the best student in her class. Not because she was naturally brilliant. Because she was terrified. She was terrified that if she wasn't exceptional, all of her father's sacrifice would have been wasted. On the day of her graduation, her father came to the school ceremony. He was wearing the same shirt he'd worn to work that morning. He smelled like oil and sweat. He sat in the back, trying to be invisible. When Chioma's name was called for the Best Student Award, she looked for him in the crowd. He was crying. Not making a sound, just tears running down his face while he clapped. That night, he bought her ice cream. They sat outside the shop and he watched her eat like it was the most important thing that had ever happened. "You're going to be something," he said. "You're going to be more than me. More than your mother. More than all of this. I promise you that." She believed him because she had secondary school cost more. The uniform cost more. The books cost more. The transportation cost more. Everything cost more, and Obiora was still working as a mechanic, making the same amount, which meant less than before. By JSS 1, Chioma understood mathematics in a way that should have been impossible for a 12-year-old. She understood that her father made 40,000 naira a month. She understood that rent was 15,000. Food was 8,000. School fees were 20,000. Transportation was 2,000. That left negative 5,000. That left impossible. She watched her father figure this out every month. She watched him choose school fees, then rent. Then the rest of it had to fit into nothing. There were weeks when they ate only beans and gari. Not because they were being frugal. Because that was all he could afford. Chioma's body got thin. Her collarbones stuck out. Her uniform hung off her like it was made for someone else. A teacher noticed. "Are you eating at home?" Mrs. Adeyemi asked after class one day. Chioma lied. "Yes, ma." "You're lying," the teacher said, not unkindly. "I know what hunger looks like." She started giving Chioma lunch. A plate of rice and stew that Chioma would eat slowly, making it last, because it had to be the only real meal she'd have that day. The teacher never made it seem like charity. She just made extra and said the portions were always too big anyway. Chioma wanted to cry. Instead, she studied harder. By JSS 2, her father started working nights. He would come home at 6 in the morning, sleep for 3 hours, then go back to the shop. Chioma would see him like this, exhausted, hollowed out, moving like his body was heavy with more than just tiredness. "Papa, are you okay?" she asked once. "I'm fine," he said. "Just tired. Go and prepare for school." He wasn't fine. She knew he wasn't fine. But she also knew that asking him to admit it would break something in him that was barely holding together. By SSS 1, Chioma had learned to wake up at 4 a.m. without an alarm. She would study for 2 hours before her father woke up. During the day, she was at school. At night, she studied until midnight. She slept 4 hours. Every single day was the same. Her friends talked about things that seemed to come from another planet. Movies. New shoes. Birthday parties. Chioma didn't have a birthday party. Her father gave her 10 naira to buy a sweet at school and told her she was born at exactly this time 16 years ago. She was grateful. That 10 naira meant he had chosen her instead of something he needed. One night, she found him sitting in the dark. Just sitting. Not moving. "Papa," she called softly. He didn't answer for a long time. Then, "I'm sorry, Chioma. I'm sorry I can't give you more." She went and sat next to him. She was 16 and her father was asking forgiveness for being poor. For not being able to be rich. For the crime of loving her so much that he was killing himself trying to give her a future. "I don't want more," she said. "I want you to be okay." "I will be," he said. "When you finish school. When you get a good job. Then I will be okay." She understood, in that moment, that her future was not hers. Her future was his redemption. She had to succeed not for herself, but to justify every sacrifice he had made, every meal he'd missed, every time he chose her over himself. The weight of that understanding sat on her chest like a storm. By SSS2, Obiora's body was breaking down. His back, from years of bending over cars. His hands, from years of gripping tools. His lungs, from years of breathing in fumes. He would come home some days and just lie on the mat they used as a bed, unable to move. Chioma would massage his back while he made small sounds of pain that he tried to hide from her. "It's okay," he would say. "It's just sore. It will pass." But it didn't pass. It got worse. He started going to work later and coming home earlier because his body simply wouldn't cooperate anymore. This meant less money. Which meant more impossible math. The school fees for SSS2 weren't paid until 3 months into the term. The school kept sending letters. Chioma wanted to leave. She told her father this, and he looked at her like she had suggested suicide. "You will not leave school," he said. It wasn't a request. It was a command from a man who had sacrificed everything. "You will finish. Even if I have to beg." He did beg. Chioma found out later that he borrowed money from people at the mechanic shop. Men who knew him from years of working beside them. He promised them he would pay them back. He borrowed 100,000 naira at interest that he would never be able to afford. But Chioma stayed in school. By the time WAEC came around, Chioma hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in 2 years. She was 17 years old and she looked 30. There were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't cover. Her hair had stopped growing. Her nails were brittle. But when the results came, she had 5 A's and 2 B's. Her father held the result letter and wept like a child. He wept like someone who had been holding their breath for 17 years and could finally breathe. "You did it," he kept saying. "You did it, Chioma. You did it." But she knew the truth. He had done it. He had done every single moment of it, and she had just survived long enough to collect the prize. That night, he sold his motorcycle. The old bike he used to get to the shop. He sold it to a man for 80,000 naira and used it to pay back some of the debts. After that, he walked to work. 40 minutes in Lagos heat, in worn shoes with holes in the sole. Chioma eventually found her way into university. It wasn't clean or easy or impressive. It came through deferred admissions, borrowed money, small scholarships that barely covered anything, and years that felt longer than they should have. Obiora watched her leave for school with pride and fear sitting side by side in his chest. He was proud that she had made it. He was afraid because he knew his body was running out of time. University took everything out of her. She studied during the day and worked small jobs at night, typing documents, tutoring younger students, doing anything that paid something. Most of what she earned went home. Obiora pretended not to notice how thin she was getting again. She pretended not to notice how slowly he was starting to move when she visited. By the time she graduated, Obiora was no longer strong. He was only stubborn. When Chioma registered for the National Youth Service Corps, he smiled like someone who had finally reached the end of a very long road. "You've come far," he told her. "Just finish this one." She was posted to Lagos. NYSC life was not what people made it sound like. The khaki uniform was cheap and rough against her skin. The hostel was overcrowded, noisy, always hot. She shared a room with too many girls and slept on a thin mattress that did nothing for her back. She worked at a small media company, doing administrative tasks that no one else wanted to do. Filing, typing, running errands. She earned the NYSC allowance, Nigerian Naira 33,000 a month, and sent most of it home. "What about you?" Obiora asked every time she mentioned sending money. "I'm fine," she said. "I eat at the office." Sometimes she did. Sometimes she didn't. She went home on weekends when transport money allowed. Each visit scared her more than the last. Obiora was losing weight. His breathing sounded wrong, too shallow, too careful, like every breath hurt. He tried to hide it by joking, by telling her stories from the mechanic shop, by asking about work like her life was still expanding and his wasn't shrinking. "How is NYSC?" he asked. "It's okay," she said. "Always okay." Everything was always okay until it wasn't. 3 months before her service year ended, the call came at 2 in the morning. "Chioma," the neighbor said, her voice shaking. "Your father has fallen. We don't know how long he was on the floor. The ambulance is here." Chioma didn't remember getting dressed. She didn't remember leaving the hostel. She only remembered running into a hospital that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Obiora was on a stretcher. Smaller than she remembered. His eyes were open, but he looked far away. The fall had fractured his pelvis. He had been lying on the floor for hours. Alone. If he had been found earlier, the doctor began. But he hadn't been found earlier. He had always done things alone. Chioma sat by his bed and held his hand. His skin felt thin, fragile, like something that had been worn down by too many years of trying. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I wanted to see you finish." "You will," she said, even though both of them knew the truth. 4 days later, his heart stopped. They said it was a clot. They said his body was tired. They said many things that sounded medical and final and useless. Chioma was holding his hand when it happened. She felt the exact moment he left. She was 23 years old. She had 3 months left in her NYSC service. She finished it. She finished it because she had no money, no safety net, and no father left to save her if she failed. She finished it because he had spent his life making sure she could. When she passed out at the end of service, there was no one waiting for her. Only the weight of everything he had given her, and the knowledge that now, she had to carry it alone. Chioma graduated from NYSC with 3 job offers. One paid 200,000 naira a month. The others paid less. She took the one that paid 200,000 naira. Not because she wanted to be rich. Because she never wanted to be helpless again. She never wanted to be the person lying on the floor calling for help that didn't come. She threw herself into work with the intensity of someone who was trying to outrun grief. She didn't have friends. She didn't go out. She worked. She saved money. She thought about her father constantly and tried to figure out if she thanked him enough, if she told him she loved him enough, if she'd understood what he was doing while she was young enough to appreciate it. She didn't have the answers. The CEO of the company noticed her. His name was stunned. He was 15 years older, divorced, and he watched Chioma work like he was trying to understand something. When he asked her to dinner, she almost said no. Then she realized she was tired of being alone. And turned, when she got to know him, was someone who stayed. He didn't promise things he couldn't deliver. He just showed up. Consistently. Quietly. Like her father had. They got married 2 years after she started working. It was a small wedding. Her father was dead and her mother had never come back, so there was no one to walk her down the aisle. Ton held her hand instead and didn't ask her why she was crying. She was happy with him. Not wildly happy. But solidly happy. The kind of happiness that felt like safety. One Tuesday morning, at 7 in the morning, someone knocked on her door. She opened it without checking first, because she was expecting a delivery. The woman standing there was so thin you could see the shape of her skull. Her skin was grayish. Her hair was matted. She looked like someone who had been slowly disappearing. For a moment, Chioma didn't recognize her. Then she did. "Hello, Chioma," her mother said. Her voice was small. Broken. "I know I have no right. But I'm very sick. I need help." 21 years. 21 years since that Tuesday morning when she'd packed a blue suitcase and left her daughter with a man who would kill himself trying to fill the space she'd left. Chioma stared at her mother. And she felt 3 things at once. 1. Pity, this woman was dying, and that was real. 2. Rage, the kind of rage that a 6-year-old girl had buried so deep that it had become a stone in her chest. 3. Clarity, sudden and absolute clarity about what she had to do. "What happened to you?" Chioma asked. Her mother explained. The rich man had eventually thrown her out. She'd lived on the streets. She'd gotten sick. Kidney failure. She was dying. She needed a transplant. She needed her daughter. "I'm sorry," her mother said. "I'm so sorry, Chioma. Please. Help me." Chioma was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her father. She thought about every sacrifice. She thought about the night she'd found him sitting in the dark, apologizing for being poor. "No," Chioma said. "Chioma, you left me when I was 6, Chioma said. Her voice was very quiet. Very steady. "You left me with a man who had nothing. And he spent his entire life trying to be enough for both of you. He died alone on the floor because he was too tired and too poor and too broken from trying to raise me by himself. I didn't know." "I don't care what you knew or didn't know," Chioma said. "My father begged me to forgive you. He never said it in words, but every time he chose my education over his own meal, he was begging me to understand why you left. And I never could. Because there was no understanding it. You just left." She stepped back. "I'm closing this door now," she said. "And I'm going to ask you never to come back. Please," her mother whispered. "I'm dying." "Everyone dies," Chioma said. "My father died alone. Begging for help that didn't come. You're getting better than you deserve." She closed the door. From inside, she could hear her mother crying. She could hear her begging. She could hear her calling Chioma's name over and over, like saying it might change something. It didn't change anything. Ton came and stood beside her. He didn't say anything. He just put his arm around her. Eventually, the crying stopped. The footsteps faded. The silence came back. Chioma never saw her mother again. She heard years later that Amina had died. A woman at the mosque, apparently, had taken her in at the end. She had died there, and some people had buried her. Chioma didn't cry. She didn't feel anything at all, which was somehow worse. She lived her life. She and Ton had children. She built a career. She was successful. She was safe. She had everything her father had died trying to give her. But sometimes, late at night, she wondered if she had been too harsh. Sometimes she wondered if, given another chance, she should have helped the woman who gave her life. If she should have donated the kidney. If forgiveness was something she owed her mother, or something she owed herself. Sometimes she thought about her father and wondered what he would have wanted her to do. And sometimes she knew that the answer was more complicated than any of those questions. Was Chioma too harsh? If you were in her shoes, if the woman who abandoned you as a child came back broken and dying, would you do otherwise? Could you forgive her? Would you donate your kidney to save a life that chose money over you? Would you be able to, even if you wanted to? Think about it.
Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next story.